Alright, so I'm just going to take this, I'm going to scribe a line on each side here, and then I'm going to do my best to scribe a line right underneath, because all the wires have to, it's going to be hard to try to get all those wires routed through these connections here, but that's the way it has to be. See, everything has to line up just so. There's a round hole here where the wires go through the riser, and then the other side of the groove, there's a little nipple that sticks up that lines this up, and that leaves a round hole for this to go through. So I'm going to have to, everything's just going to have to be precise. The handlebars, they're locked in. They can't be adjusted forward or back once you get these holes drilled. And same as your controls. Your switches that go here, it's a one-shot deal. There's a dowel that they fit into, and then there's the wires that go through. So you really got to take your time and lay it out and get it all drilled correctly. There we go, all marked out, laid out. Just gonna start drilling holes. Hope for the best. Okay, now let's get out the die grinder and get her cleaned up. Well, there we go. We'll check to see if that's remotely close to anything. So this guy kind of just assembled all the throttle assembly, and that's the pin that goes in. They got to drill a hole for. Just took a paint marker and put a white dot on there. The curvature just sat it in place, so there's a little white dot in there where that needs to be. There. I got these holes drilled. And I try to figure out how to lay out these notches. I think there's a bit of leeway in these because it's just the wires that come through, and I think they're not going to be super critical, but see what I can do. So I'm just going to kind of freeball this one, but it looks like the edge of this kind of lines up with sort of the center line of this hole. See? Draw a line straight from the center through that hole. That's this edge, and then this edge kind of lines up with this edge. So I'm just going to lay out my marks like that accordingly, and drill it and notch on both sides and hope for the best. So there, kind of laid it out. I'm just stick my transfer punch here and then center punched it. So that should be close enough. There we go. That should work. It's a damp, cool, rainy day, and we got shut down at work again for rain, so I'm here working on my bike. And I put a little fire on because it was just damp and cool here in the garage, and I want to paint my handlebars before I put them on. So I put a fire on and went in the house for lunch and came back out. And I was just met with that nice warm feeling of a wood stove, you know, and I was thinking how just how nice it is sometimes to be self-sufficient. And it's the little things that you do for yourself that make such a big difference. You know, this wood stove started with me buying a chainsaw and going out and cutting the wood, bucking it up, splitting it all with an axe by hand. And I built this stove by hand, you know, with leftover material I had laying around. And I came and installed it in this garage, and now look. You know, it was all just for having that welcoming, just warm feeling of a wood stove in your garage, and it's great, you know. The more things you can do for yourself, just the better your life is. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Wow, that was a chore. Holy jeez. So from all the work I did to my bars, I scratched them up a bit because they were just painted bars to begin with. So after I was done, I masked it off and scuffed up the paint with some sandpaper and just gave them a spray. But these wires, they got to go in through there and through those sharp angles, and they're just welded together miter joints, so they're all sharp on the inside. So I had to feed a piece of string in, but you can't barely pull on the string because it just gets cut off in these sharp corners. So I had to fed a piece of string in, and I couldn't get a piece of wire through, so I took this weight, I think it was a hair clip or something I found. I put it on the end of the string I shook it in through, and I got the string through, and I got the string sticking out, and then I got a piece of it's like a leather string, like a leather lace, and I brought that through, and I tied the wire to that, got the mechanic wire hauled through, then tied the attached these to the mechanic wire and then pulled it through. And man, there's times I had the bars upside down, 2 feet on it, pulling almost all I had, pushing and pulling. Maybe some kind of lube on this or something would have helped. Holy crap! These 4 wires got a stretching, but we're in. So I'm just gonna start mounting stuff up. And so the first step, because all the wires is kind of internal here, the first step is you got to poke these wires down into there, and then I'll just have them down there for now. But to note, like to get these bars off, first you got all the wires connect in the headlight bezel for your signal lights and for all these controls. It's all in behind your headlight. So you got to pull out your headlight, and you got to unhook all the wires, and you got to pull them out of there and out through, and then up through here. So I got to reverse the process after. So the wires go in like that, and then there's this little nipples sticking up that correspond with these grooves. We'll get her together. Okay, well, we'll call that good for this video. I don't have none of the little caps over the bolts yet because everything's tightened up, but it's not super tightened. It's just all snugged up. See these, when I made the holes a bit big, so there's a bit of play so I can kind of get them evened out. And besides that, everything went well. Actually starting to be a classy unit. The mirrors I accidentally ordered them too big. I thought they were the smaller mirrors, like on this bike. They're kind of big plastic mirrors. I thought they looked terrible, but they don't seem that bad, so maybe I'll just leave them. So that will be it for the handlebar video. Next time, I will be probably working on the back end. Right now, I'm going to be pulling off that fairing and welding out the brackets and cleaning those up. And then while the fairing's off, I'm going to button up all the wiring in the front. I got the factory stems for these. So all these wires got to get pulled out, put through the stems. All that's got to get put back in together. I don't know how much of the wiring I'm going to film, but just get the front all buttoned up, and then I'll move on to the back. So stay tuned for the next part when I start on the sissy bar.